Okay, I think we're good. All right, so we are going to get ready for our lab today. Right, it took me like a couple iterations to get everything fixed, but it's there. So check out Canvas and you can download the lab. And if you want to get started, we'll go ahead and do that. Let me share screen here. So in this lab, we are going to use Kali Linux. There is a Kali version with volatility, but we're not gonna do that one. We're gonna install it so that way I can show you how you can install it from scratch. It's a little tricky, but it's definitely doable. So you just need to download Kali. It might take like a minute or so. So click the link and then you're gonna unzip it. So once you download it, it's gonna go into your downloads folder. And then it's gonna be a zip file like this. We've done this before. Hi. Then we are gonna right click it and then choose 7-zip and then extract here. Okay, so the first two step is just to download Kali VBox and then extract it. You don't need to plug in USB or anything. You can plug in your USB for schoolwork and save it, but we're not using any extra image or anything like that. We're gonna download everything today. So once we extract and after we download Kali, we can open up VirtualBox. And then we're gonna add the virtual machine, right? And then point to your extracted folder in downloads. And then you can click start. Now, if you want, you can give it a little bit more juice, but I think we're just gonna do mostly command line on Kali. So not gonna be a huge difference. And it's fairly fast anyway, so. And the password is Kali, same as a user by default. Okay, so that just to get us loaded. So you don't really have to mount the USB or anything like that. Sorry, I forgot to take that out when I added it from the prior lab. So a little bit on the framework. I think we touched slightly on it when we mentioned it in the lecture, but so this works with any OS. So earlier you hear asked if he can run it on his laptop. Sure, you can do that. You can install as long as you have Python 3. So this tool is written in Python 3 and 2. So therefore you need Python language package to run. Okay. So you can run, and most Linux releases now come with the Python 3. I think Ubuntu comes equipped with that too. If you're looking at like Raspberry Pi, it comes with Python 2 out of the box, and then you can add in Python 3. So it's cross-platform. And if you want to use it with images, it's able to work with DD, E01, QEMU, you name it, right? So it's able to do a lot of the virtual image and the regular image. Okay. So what can we use to really create images? I think we talked about tool when we look at the lecture, right? You can use FTK Imager, you can use Lime, you can use Helix. There are, tons of other tools that will allow you to create your memory image or your memory dump. So basically it's a capture of the state of the RAM, right, at the time that the machine is on. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. Now, why is that important? Because we're going to be able to see, malware and all of those things. I'm a little bit disappointed on the Python side is that it is limited in that you can't see some of the network connection like it's intended for the tool to be used. But when you install the application and use the CLI side of the application, it is a little better than running it straight from Python. Okay, so we are going to use Python directly today. So you can see we're not programming anything, we're just going to run the Python file. Okay. All right. So once you have this booted and logged in, that was the first few steps here, right? We are going to go ahead and click on our terminal. Okay. We're going to work mostly in the terminal and using the browser, but we also need to download our tool and our image. Okay, so once you have your Kali up and running, open up Firefox. And then on the search bar, you can type in this, right? So we can simply, you can find the volatility 3. If you don't want to type the whole thing, but on Kali, you can copy and paste. So I can copy this, okay? And I can come here and I can paste, okay? Period. Okay, so when you look at the version, you would see that there is version 2 that's specifically written in Python 2. You know that Python 2 is deprecated. I think the build tool for it, they finally just did away with it. But it would still work if you already have Python 2. Now we are using Python 3, so we are going to use volatility 3. So that means that the new version doesn't support some of the old OS. And the image that we're using is like Windows XP. So you are going to see that one area that we're not going to be able to find much information. So some of the newer OS will be supported in the volatility 3, which is written in Python 3. I had to really dig in their documentation to really see that, or in their forum. They don't really come right out and say which one they supported. So okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and click the download the source code, which is a zip file here. If you're familiar with terminal, you can actually do the curl or the wget, and then you just need to tar it. Okay, so I'm just going to click this right here and then save file and then click OK. Okay, so make sure we do the save file. So I'm at this step. So I downloaded the zip file for the application. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find that download. And I'm going to move it to the desktop. The reason why is that I want you to be in one directory when you work on this, instead of flipping back and forth on the terminal. It's confusing. Okay. So click on the File Explorer up here. And then open the folder, and then you can find downloads. There's my file. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it on my desktop. Okay. You can copy, you can drag it, whatever you like. So once I have this on my desktop, which is the next step here, okay, I'm going to extract it and then I'm going to rename it. The reason why is just to simplify the process for us. Otherwise, you have to type in the actual version number, and it can be very difficult if you're, like this. So we're going to right click and we're going to extract here. So this is the decompressed folder, right? This is the compressed file. So we're going to rename the decompressed folder. Okay. So you can choose rename. And then what I did was I just took out the number just to make it simple. So after we extract, we want to rename the folder, and both of these are on the desktop. You can put it in other directory just to make it easy. We're gonna put it on our desktop because our image is also gonna be there. All right. So now let's test the application. Okay. So what I want to show you here is that if we open up this folder, you're gonna see that this is the setup file, right? This is the actual, the Python application right here, right? You can run it straight from Python, but if you wanted to run it as a built application, you gotta build it from the language. So you have to run the setup tools and then the build and all of that. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna test it. So after you have all that on the desktop, I'm gonna go back to the terminal. So I can close this. Come here to the terminal. Hello. And then I'm gonna change my directory to desktop. So right now we're at step 15 because we want to access the desktop so that way we can open up our folder that contains the application. So in the next line, what you're doing here is you are going to make sure that you have the setup tools for Python 3. And you're gonna install the build essentials. Okay. With this, you can build it. Okay, so you gotta make sure that it actually built the application. So I'm just gonna copy this. And then I can put it into my terminal. And then we just put in our password, which is Callie. Oh, what happened? Oh, sorry, no S. Okay. I apologize if I put the S there, which there should not be an S there. Okay. Essential with no S. So remove the S. So when it throws an error, it cannot find the package. That means that likely the package name is wrong. Yeah. Did you unzip it? Yeah, I think you're trying to open it in the other folder. Okay. So what we're doing is after we extracted the folder, we're gonna move into desktop. We install setup tools for Python because this is a Python application. Now we're gonna move into a folder called Volatility 3. And with that, we are gonna install the actual application from the Python file. Okay. So if you look at your virtual machine, sorry, I'm gonna show this real quick. If you open this, you see that there's this is our application and this is a setup file. So we're gonna run the setup file to do the installation. Okay. So we're gonna come back here. I do have a session already. Okay. So after we install the build essential, remember no S after essential. Sorry, I had typed S on there. Then we're going to move into volatility 3. So I'm going to do CD volatility 3. And now I'm in the folder. Okay. So once you're in the volatility folder, then what you're going to do is you are going to use the Python 3 command to run the setup install. That means that you're going to install the application or the volatility application. And if you don't want to type it, you can copy it, and then they allow bidirectional copy and paste. So you can just paste it in. So it's going to take a second to process the installation. Okay. So the whole point in Linux is if you have the package, you got to be inside the folder where that setup file is in order to install. Then what we're going to do is we're going to execute it using Python. Now, this program is really designed to work as an application with the CLI, but when you do it this way, we're missing a few steps. We have to build it and we have to link it to the home path so that way it's going to execute on the Python with Python on the low end. However, right, I just want to mitigate some of the steps and that can cause issue. So we're just going to run it with the Python package every single time. Okay. So whenever that you need to execute anything for this with the volatility to scan, you just simply call on Python and then its file, okay, which is vol.py. So if I execute this, I'm actually accessing the help of volatility. And so it's going to give you all the details about the plugins, and each of the plugin is going to be the command that it uses for specific app. So if you're scanning a Windows system, you need to use the Windows plugin. If you're scanning RAM for Mac system, you need to use the Mac plugin. If you're scanning RAM for the Linux system, you need to use the Linux plugins. So they made various plugins for different things. And then there are additional options that you need to put in with when you run that file. Okay. So what you're doing is you're running the source code directly in Linux instead of running an application. Okay. Because it's actually written as source code anyway. Okay. So when you get the dash H here, what you're going to see is you're going to see different plugins, and on the plugins, they are used for individual command on the volatility CLI. So as an application, you get a command line and you can say volatility. So when you look at all of these online tutorials, they actually wrote it for volatility too, because I checked them all out. I had to troubleshoot this lab 3 times. So, you know, first I wrote the instruction for the CLI and I was like, oh, that's too much steps. So I went back and I fixed it again. So I said the easiest way is to run it through Python 3 so you don't get confused. Okay. So most of the stuff that's out there is actually for volatility too. But then, you know, when you try to build that with the code, some of the stuff is deprecated. So you can't pull some of the packages from Git and it just create problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this with Python directly like this. So anytime that you run a command, you have to do Python 3 vol.py and then you would run a plugin with it. Okay. So when I did that, I would get a bunch of information about help. So help give you like options on how to use it. And then what kind of plugins you can use to find details. Okay, this tool is really made to find malware at the low level. So you're gonna see how it can find that, right? Through RAM. Okay. So once we got the help, we are going to go ahead and copy this link. And then we are going to go into our browser inside our virtual machine. And we're going to visit the link to download CIS image. Make sure we save the file. You can put it onto we can copy it to desktop. So we're going to save it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our downloads. And again, we're going to cut it and put it on our desktop. Okay. So this is a RAM image that is created to find a malware, right? We are going to look at some of the details information. I'm a little disappointed in one of the steps because I wanted to really include those things, but I can't because XP is not supported in volatility 3. So I'll show you which part that is. So this is the image and it is zip. So we still have to extract it. Okay, so right click and extract here. So you're gonna see that is a mem dump or a mem dump file, okay, which is an image of the RAM inside the Windows XP system that they captured. Okay. You can find a bunch of stuff online for different competitions for malware. So you can use this tool to kind of find more information about each of the malware when you're competing. Okay, so we save the file, we decompress it onto the desktop. And then now we're gonna run our tool to find information about the image. So the first thing that you should do is to really get more details about the image, what operating system it contains, right? The version, some of the details, the processor, and so on. So we are going to use a plugin called windows.info. And this is the info. So they used to have a different command for this, but now they did it with this type of plugins. So this plugin, if you run it on your terminal, make sure that we are in the desktop directory and all our tools, right? And we are in the volatility. Okay. I'm sorry. I meant to go here. Oh, I'm sorry. You need to put that file inside volatility folder. This CIS mem right here, this one, make sure that you put it inside this. Okay. Otherwise, it won't work. I think I put that on the instruction. I just did it differently. So after you extract the image, make sure that you copy the extracted image on inside the volatility 3. Put it inside the volatility 3. Then you are going to run the command. So we are going to use Python, and we're going to run the volatility application through vol.py. So the parameter after that is you're going to use the -f. This is to indicate file. So whatever image file you have, you want to follow that up. Okay, so this is my image file, and this option just says that it's file. And then the plugin will follow the file name. Okay, so that's how you can run it directly from Python. So here, okay, so it's gonna go through all the RAM layers. You're gonna see all of that, and it's gonna read the symbol, which is on the low level. So this tool works with low level instructions, and then it's gonna give you this. Okay. So I have an NT build, and it shows me that this is an XP Windows XP service pack, and it tells you here. Okay. So I know that this is Windows XP. How do I know it's Windows? Because the root drive, the volume is C drive and Windows, right? And it tells me the version up here. So how do I know what kind of processor it has? How many processor? It tells you here. Kernel number of processor 1. Okay. So if you have a server system that have like multi-core, it would list it here. So the first thing that we always want to do is to run the information on that image by using info. And I know it's a Windows image, so I would use the Windows plugin. Okay, so make sure that you know that there's different plugins for different OS. Okay, so take a screen capture, look at the information. It tells you the system time. So the system time was here, July 22nd, 2012 at 2:45 p.m. Okay. The version of Windows that's used, we talked about Windows XP, how many processor, what is the image date. It shows all of that when you use the info plugin or info plugin for Windows. So make sure our mem file is inside the volatility, which is the tool that we're using, the folder. And make sure that our path is correct. Because if you're getting an error, that's probably you're not in the right directory. Okay. So on the CLI side, you can also use plist, ps3, pscan, and pxview. This is discontinue in volatility rate. Okay. Which is unfortunate on the plugin side because it actually shows hidden file. But this is only supported to Windows XP as Windows XP is not really used anymore, right? So they kind of did away with this. But you should still be able to do all the scan. So as you know, that malware utilizes processes. So we want to dig as much, and we want to obtain a lot of information about processes. So PS list is a plugin that you would use. And this is going to list all the process or your PID information, the parent and the sub process. So PPID is the parent and the sub process is going to be the PID. Because for malware, it might use a lot of different processes, right? That's the whole point in malware is it's going to utilize as much resources as possible to slow your system down, to occupy all those resources. So it will leave nothing for the other. Okay. So what you would see is we want to find the process information by using PS list. Okay. And also PS3 is going to map out the list of processes or give you the list of processes and its child process. Okay. So all of these things ultimately are very similar. But what you want is you want to dig for process information. So after we review the information, we are going to use PS list. And again, we're going to use Python, run the Python file, and then our image file, and then add the plugins. So it's really easy. So when you get this, what you're going to see is you're going to see the sub process on the left, the parent process next to it, right? And the executables, as you notice that it's also going to give you the timestamp following that. Okay. And if you look at the executable, there's only a few things that's happening. You got service host or CSVC host exe, services, win logon, right? So these executables, you will see that it's going to relate to the malware that we're going to find. Okay. So once you see that, right, you should see win login, services, all of these things. Okay. And it gives you the explanation of what PID is. That's for the process, the parent process. And it also gives you a value. So that value you want to pay attention to it because it's associated with the executable. You know that malware, right? The objective of the malware is to do something to the system, right? So on this one, you're going to see that win login executable process is 608 and its parent PID is 368. So you want to focus on both of these PID. Also services, so look at the values and associated process or the parent process. Okay. And then we look at the timestamp. So coming back here, you get all of that. Like the service host. Then we are going to use the parent and the child process. We're going to use a plugin to find this, but it's actually a different plugin. Similar, right? So you are going to run a similar command, but you are going to use PS-tree. Okay. If those of you who know programming, right, you know that this is a class, right? This is a property of a class that we're using. Okay. So they created a class, and then this is a function inside that class. And so this is what you see. If you read they actually have the source code on Git, and you can also see it. So all of these are sub modules that's built together a package in that file. So it's calling other files. Okay, so we're going to paste the selection here. So you're going to see something similar to the last one, right? We are going to get the process ID, the parent process ID, but we're going to get some additional information when you're using a tree. Okay, because on the tree, the PS tree, it actually shows the relationship with the processes. It groups them together a little better. Okay. So I want you to identify the last two processes. Okay. So if we go down, we would see the reader and the explorer. So the explorer.exe is basically you open up your file explorer and then be able to access your files, right? It also gives you the addresses. So your physical address is shown there for your process, that is, on RAM. Oh, sorry. Meant to click that. Okay. So the last two process listed, that should be, sorry, is your exe and your reader. This is indicating that if they're not indented, so if the process is indented, that is going to be the child process, right? So when you're using PS-tree, it's going to group the parent and the child together a little better than what you see in the last output. So you want to identify the relationship between those processes. Then for 27, we're going to run PS-scan. And this is going to give you the inactive and hidden process. This plugin is very important. Okay. You say, oh, it looks kind of like the other one. It's still the same process that we're looking at, right? but it also gives you additional details on hidden ones. So if you have rootkit that have like hidden process, right, you would see it here. Okay, there are certain things that doesn't show the user, that's only the system can see, so we want to be able to explore that. Are there any hidden process here compared to the last? Okay, so if you compare the type of processes that we see, you're gonna see right off the bat, you're gonna see some. Okay, there are new process that's gonna give in PS scan compared to the others. So those are the hidden process that you don't normally see. Okay. Okay, so when we look at the PS list and the PS scan or the PS tree, how is that different in comparison? Are there any new processes that it's identified? Okay, so look closely. Any question? So the thing that we can find with PS scan is a lot of the time rootkit have hidden process, so that's what you want to look for, right? So you need to run PS list first before you run PS scan so you can compare. PS list is going to list the running processes, and then PS scan is going to tell you the running hidden process. So you can compare the difference. And that's important. Then we are going to do a malfind. Okay. This, we're going to also come back to this later on when you're going to, so malfind is something that they added to be able to look at your memory location that potentially have injected code. So malware is just a code, right? But if you have a location where it would have additional code, that's how it's going to find it. Okay. So we're going to run this. You can type it or paste it. Okay. So it tells me that there are a few locations that I need to look at. Okay. So definitely some area that we need to find. So when login or when log on, definitely there because it's doing read and write. Again, for when log on, right? When log on. So now you know which process is impacted, right? And then explore, reader SLEXE. So those are the processes that are impacted. So that region of memory for those processes potentially have injected code. So put down the process that's listed. And this is the one that I'm super disappointed in because, you know, but if you run it on a newer image, like, I don't know, Windows 10 image, you should find it. It's really cool, actually. It gives you IP port, protocols, you name it. All right. So when you run this, you're going to get an error because XP doesn't have the support. So you're going to get a traceback. So whenever you get error in Python, this is what it looks like. It tells you like certain things is not executed, blah, blah, blah. So for the net scan, it's supposed to give you like the location of memory that's used for network service, the protocol, your IP address locally, the local port, your public IP that it's connecting to, and the connection port for your outside, your external. but because it's not supported for XP, this is what you get. Okay, but I want you to know that you can run it for newer Windows version or newer OS. Any questions? Okay, then for the next part, it's gonna be dynamic library. This is only for Windows. Okay, Windows OS uses DLL, and the lecture and the chapter talk about this for the last few weeks. So this contains code about the application, and so it uses this to run the code simultaneously. I have typos everywhere. Okay. Now, it uses this for the process to really associate files and other processes that for that particular application. So when you run an application, it's going to refer to the DLL to be able to coordinate the process and the resource. Okay. Now in the CLI, if you use very-info, DLL list, and get SIG, it's going to give you the details. So therefore, we're going to use the same thing in the plugins. Okay. So again, we are going to use our Windows plugin with our file. And this might take a little bit because there's lots of. So when it's done, it's going to show you the information of all the PE files. The PE files, those are portable executable files that's used, right, for the system process to run a certain application or code. So when it's finished, it's going to show you these are the type, and here you see the executable, that's the process, and then the DLL files or the PE file. Okay. And the good thing is they do group, right, the files for that same process together, so you don't have to sort it. Okay. So we saw how we can use very-info plugin. And then you're gonna look at this particular executable and see how many DLLs are found there. Okay. So count them up. Then we are gonna also look at DL list. Okay, that's an L. So DL, lowercase L, and then uppercase. It is case sensitive, so when you type it, just be careful. Okay, so it's going to be similar, but slightly different than the last one. It doesn't list it from just the executable. It actually put the parent and the child stuff together. So it's organized it based on the file instead of the process when you're doing the DLL list. Okay. Whereas the other one, when we do the very-info, it groups it based on the process, not the file. Okay. So it would give you the files that's related to that process. On the second round, when we do the DLL list, it's gonna give you the file first, and then it's gonna list associated process or other files that's used with it. So it tells you here that the DLL list gives you the whatever that's used for the program concurrently, the list of files that's used by the process concurrently. Okay. I know it's a lot of screenshot, but one day you're gonna look back and say, what the heck did I do in that lab, right? You're gonna see your screenshot, so that way you can have a reference. that, oh yeah, I did my plugins in terminal. Then for this part, we are going to get SID. And if you read get SID, this is going to show you all the user security ID. So if we wanted to see which user is impacted, right? They could use a user account or somebody downloaded it, or could be other things, right? We can find like how that happened or who did what. Okay. So you're gonna do a get SID to see the users and the associated process. So you're gonna compare that to the PS list and the PS tree to see, right? And PS scan to see like which user uses which process. And that's how we're going to narrow down on the user account that's impacted. So we are going to do the get SID. And this one doesn't take too long. So you're going to get all the system user accounts as normal. Okay. So this is the process and the user account that's using. So you do see local system. Remember that we talked about that as the highest privilege. And then authenticated user, administrators. NT authority, that's for the back. Okay. And sometimes you would see that it's grouped. There's everyone. That's default with Windows. And it's still around. So when you scroll down and you scroll down and you look, right, the same kind of users keep popping up. And then also like it talks about how the SID value is identified, right? How does it know which user is which? It's based on the values. So there's a logon session happening here. And then if you look, there's a domain and then there's Robert. Okay, so you need to find Robert. Okay, and look at the process that's used by that user and the process ID. So if you're investigating someone, right, this is also a good way to find them through RAM on that system. Then after that, we are going to look at registry. Do you have any questions? Any help? Good. No issues is okay, right? Okay, so when you deal with Windows, always have to deal with registry because that's where all the hardware, the software, the user account, everything that happens in the system gets recorded in the registry. Okay. So all your settings, your programs, your OS, your hardware update, encrypted password, everything happens in the registry. So the two plugins that we're going to examine is going to be HiveScan and HiveList. Now, a little different than your last few plugins, you are going to have to add in the registry. This is an additional module, a file that's used to be able to put together that vol.py file. So you're going to find, right, Windows registry HiveScan. So I can run this. And what this is it's going to tell me these are the physical location, right? That's the memory address. That was what we see. That's the physical location of my entire registry for this image, all of this. That's where they store. Then we're gonna do Hive lists. And again, right? It has, instead of Windows and then the extension, you're just gonna add in also registry. Slightly different. So Hive list is gonna give you the actual drive location or the path along with the physical address. Okay. So it tells you here that it provides registry Hive location in RAM. It gives you the virtual and the physical address. So for us, that is helpful because this is the actual location on the disk. So for Sam, I can go into this area, this folder, right? Under my, so device, hard disk, volume 1, Windows System 32, config, etc. So you see a little different between Hive scan, which only memory address, and Hive list. It actually gives you the path or the virtual address. Sorry, I made a boo-boo here. I just caught it. For step 36, it should be timeliner. Let me test it real quick. Okay, hold on. Didn't like that. Print key, SSCT, user sys. We don't need all of those things. Oh, you guys say to put there. Yeah, it should be a timeliner. I might have mistyped it. Let me see. Timeliner. Oh, it doesn't need the Windows. So for 36, you just scan it like that. Oh. I'll highlight it so you can see. So for 36, we're gonna fix it like this. So make sure it's timeliner. Let me check. Check out the Windows part. Oh, come on. It's supposed to give you the time for all the events. Timeline.
Because it's the major version. And
Oh, duh. It's really dumb on my part. Oh, I knew it. So make sure it is capital here. I had to type it in all lowercase and I'm like, why is it not working? It worked yesterday. Okay, so fix that. Sorry, I had mistyped it. But when you do the timeliner, it's gonna give you the events by time, which is cool because it tracks all the processes based on the event. And it would do the plist and pscan for you here, and it shows the timestamp. Okay. I think the book talks a little bit about that, or the notes. So you can have, so when we get to 36, make sure, and then the second part, you know that because it's a class, it's always going to be capitalized. So capital T. If it gives you a bunch of plugins list, that means that you did it wrong. So you have to retype it again. No Windows on that one. That one is just its own module. So when you look at this, you're going to see that it's the same date, right? Pretty close in the time, because that's really where the event, like that little gap of window, maybe a few minutes or even seconds in between. Okay. So you're going to see like that window in time that's pretty close. Now the symlink, you would see that it would be for like from browser to files to application to other things. You can also find symlink information too, but it's going to give you the processes, the things that happen. And then we come back and we redo the malfind again. And what I want you to do is look at the process ID 608, the memory address for that. Okay. It's timeliner. Second part.
just change that.
Yeah. I meant to put timeliner and somehow I put down, I might have copied and pasted the high from the top down and I forgot to change it. Sorry. My mind was sleeping and my hand was just still typing, right? That's what happened. So timeliner for that. So with this, you're able to experiment with some of your plugins, right? A new tool that we can add to our list of tool for forensic, which is Volatility 3. It is a framework for RAM forensic. There are other tools, of course, but this is cool. You can bring it into any Linux system now that's Debian. You know how to do that now. You can run it straight from Python. You can also build it. There are maybe a few more steps. You just need to install some requirements for the application to build it. You can run it with the command instead of running it with the Python file like this. Okay. So for the last part, you just do the malfind and then look at your output. Look at the PID, which is your sub process. and the memory address, because that's actually the process that is impacted by the malware. So you would see that it would have use like a lot of services. It might also have like explore to be able to open up things. And then on the SID level, you would see that it would have either specific user or a lot of the time local system would access. I think Quidex was actually one of the challenge or one of the competition. You can find others. There are other RAM image with malware. So if you go to their, I think I put a link last time. I showed you last time with the, for if you go to the file link that we download, right? The main site for that, you can find a lot of other images that are RAM images for malware forensics. So there's some that's Mac, that's Linux. Those files are a little larger. You just gotta download, decompress, and you can play with it. So there's resources for you to practice. Any questions? So let me run. Okay, and then we just want to look for 608. You're gonna see several. That's your WinLogon. So when you authenticate, that's a service that's an executable that allows you to log into your Windows. So that kind of gives you a what kind of malware it is, right? Any questions? I think Callie should add this into their toolbox, but it's not. I was surprised. Okay. Let me stop recording.